Right now, everyone's carrying something even behind the brightest smiles. We'll show you how to share and receive support on this World Mental Health Day. Also, she's not real, but the controversy is we'll examine how an AI actress is igniting big ethical questions about what's human in Hollywood and roll out the red carpet, maybe even a little Southern hospitality. We're taking you inside a small town festival with big screen dreams. This is The Take. Hello and welcome. I'm Cheryl Preheim in for my friend Chesley McNeil. This is The Take, where we go beyond the headlines, look at why and how stories are impacting your community. Experts share what they know and we'll have a little fun too. But we start with a dramatic development in a prison break, then national manhunt that all ended here in Atlanta. Derek Groves started this Friday, still in the Fulton County Jail as authorities finalize his transfer back to New Orleans. Thursday, the convicted murderer waived his right to an extradition hearing and told the judge that he wants to return to Louisiana. Groves was the last of the 10 inmates to be captured that broke out of jail about 4 months ago. The other inmates who escaped in New Orleans were tracked down within a couple of weeks. Groves will eventually join the other 9 inmates at the infamous Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola. The U.S. Marshals Service believes Groves had help, perhaps a ride from Louisiana to Atlanta or money to get here. The Louisiana Attorney General and Louisiana State Police say they will bring charges against anybody who assisted Groves. It took months, dozens of agencies, and a trail that stretched across state lines to bring the manhunt to an end. So what actually goes into coordinating a big search like this, and how do investigators finally close in? Time to welcome a friend to the show. Dr. Thaddeus Johnson is an assistant professor of criminal justice and criminology at Georgia State University. Also spent more than 2 decades in active law enforcement by combining field service and command roles. Good to see you.
Good to see you this morning. Great to see you.
Okay, you were watching this all play out with the rest of us. What was your overall reaction to that final arrest? So many months in the making, happening right here in Atlanta.
Yeah, I can't help but think about all the hard work, all the dedication, think about the victim's family, and think about everything that went into it. You know, this is a big task. You know, you have the local agencies, which is the Louisiana State Police and New Orleans agencies that, you know, they bring the marshals in to run a fugitive task force, and they have this unified incident command. They have clear lanes where you have surveillance teams, tip line triage, digital forensics, and these things. And so, and these things generally happen in 3 broad phases. You mentioned it. You know, you have containment, you have sustain and squeeze, and then the last part is close and arrest. And this could cost millions of dollars in funds and taxpayer dollars, hours and hours and hundreds of hours of overtime. And so, yeah, you really see a lot of work going into it and people dedicated to making sure that people are brought to justice.
Thaddeus, I'm so glad that you mentioned the victims. You think about these violent, convicted criminals and the impact they've had on other people's lives, and then the months that those families were waiting for the moment he was finally captured here. When the search goes on that long, how do investigators sustain some momentum, keep that trail from going cold?
You know, that's really important and a great question. You know, when you first have an incident, the first 24, 72 hours, several days, you know, you have these perimeter checks, you know, facial recognition hits, the checking bus and transports, even doing door-to-door and things like that. But when it goes off to weeks, you started to see a more dedicated task force. You seem to have less manpower and personnel, and you start seeing them put pressure upon perhaps people that they know, looking for folks who aided and abetted, trying to close that social support network. And at some point, generally, oftentimes, the individuals on the run often makes mistakes. And so when that happened, and there's a bunch of little pieces of evidence, phone pings, conversations, and in this case, a Crime Stoppers tip, where everything comes together, and then you see a surge in personnel again to make that final arrest.
You know, so often on the news, we are talking to the community about, hey, law enforcement's asking for help, they need tips. This is a perfect example of why that request goes out and why the community is the difference maker. A tip was the difference here. Police saw that suspicious activity at that house. How critical is that communication between law enforcement and the community?
We look at things that we see like NCIS with all this technology, or the movie back in the day with Minority Report, where we're future minded and thinking about these things. At the end of the day, it comes to the community. It comes to these quiet conversations, these tips that really helps us direct all of this technology, direct all of our attention. So public safety is just not a policing issue. And this is not just for these types of issues. All incidents, it's a community issue. And that's why it's so utterly important for the police and citizens to have a good relationship, for there to be trust. If there's any acrimony, for us to bridge those gaps, because we're safer when both sides of the badge are communicating.
And I was thinking about, it's just a good reminder for everyone to maybe look up from their phones, be engaged what's happening around them, because that neighborhood is safer today because someone spoke up and people were noticing some different behavior and spoke up about it. What does this case ultimately tell us about how law enforcement maybe adapts, collaborates? Because we saw that fugitive in an Atlanta patrol car, so we know it was local, state, federal forces coming together. Maybe what we learn from a high stakes search like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Public safety is a community and a local issue, but it's an everybody issue. Crossing state lines are not as hard as it used to be perhaps 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 30 years ago. And so we have to all make sure we have each other's backs. You see this all the time where you have federal law enforcement in various capacities working with local agencies and states, whether it's a task force that you see working in Memphis or things that you've seen before happen in DC to take down robbery units. These things work together, and not just beyond the police and communities, also with the courts. Many times you'll see the federal prosecutors or federal resources or state resources help beef up local courts so they can not only make arrests, but also have swift and certain justice. So deterrence kicks in, and also so the victims feel justice is served and communities feel safer.
So we know that he'll be taken back to Louisiana. That's kind of the end of the story. And I guess the thing that still will happen is kind of revisiting how they all got out of prison in the first place. Thaddeus Johnson, it's always so good to talk to you. Thanks for your expertise.
Thank you so much. I always appreciate you all.
All right, have a great weekend. Don't go anywhere. You are watching The Take, and we'll be right back. It is day 10 of the federal government shutdown. Here's where things stand. Yesterday, the Senate tried but was unable to pass a funding proposal from either side of the aisle. This marks the 7th time senators failed to move a short-term spending bill one step closer to the president's desk. Electronic fund transfers or direct deposits for federal workers are scheduled to be sent today. Federal employees who receive pay through direct deposits will miss payments for October work. This shutdown has now lasted longer than 13 previous shutdowns, with just 7 shutdowns stretching longer than this one. Let's bring in NBC's Washington correspondent, Alice Barr. Always good to see you, Alice.
Good morning to you. Always good to speak with you.
All right, so no votes expected in the Senate today and none scheduled now through Tuesday. Is this not much urgency from either side in getting this resolved, or is there just a lot of work still that has to happen behind the scenes before something can move forward?
I think it's the latter. I think that's the reality here. There have now been a series of votes attempted and failed on the Senate floor, and it seems clear that nothing is changing in that department, so perhaps a futile exercise. But what would be useful would be to get some real and serious negotiations going between the two parties. And the best that we can tell right now is that there are a lot of individual conversations going on across party lines, individual senators speaking, Democrats speaking to Republicans, the same in the House, vice versa. But that the actual top party leaders have still not gone head-to-head, sat down and made any headway since it's been more than a week now since they had those kind of discussions. So that is what has to happen to get the government reopened, to get at least a vote, that would make any kind of sense to have back on the Senate floor. There has to be some indication that there's a reason that the state of play has changed and that would advance. And as long as you don't have the major principal players speaking to each other, it's hard to see how the conditions are right for that.
Sure. So we're going to hear a little later today from Speaker Mike Johnson. Yesterday, he seemed to sidestep whether he supports President Trump's threat to fire furloughed federal workers. Is this now the new battle line being drawn in the shutdown?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that President Trump and other Republicans have indicated would be possible from even before the shutdown took effect, that they would use this time to cut more government workers. And you're right that Speaker Johnson didn't really address that. He kind of skirted around it. He did say that he and other Republicans are limited government conservatives and that they think there's too much inefficiency in the federal government, that it's too large and does too many things. These are things he said frequently. But he did defend government workers as well. He said there are programs that probably should be eliminated, but we want federal workers to be protected. And then he pivoted to what has been another issue raised, the idea that furloughed federal workers, those who have been sent home without pay, that they might not be paid after the shutdown ends. That's something that President Trump has raised as well, saying it would depend on who you're speaking about. And Speaker Johnson noted correctly that the law guarantees federal employees receive back pay at the end of a shutdown. So he did assert himself there in a way that differs from some of what the president has recently indicated.
Alice, a big development we're following here in Georgia. Democrats now rallying around Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, a known very conservative Republican. Now she is criticizing GOP leaders on the health care issue and the raising of premiums. Before we go, how much traction do Dems hope to get from this?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've been hearing it a lot. You've been hearing a lot of Democrats pointing out what Marjorie Taylor Greene has said. I think her name has been uttered by Democrats, in a flattering way more than probably we've ever seen. She is a known, conservative voice who's very vocal on Capitol Hill. And the fact that she is now using her voice to say, hey, this is a problem, that these Obamacare subsidies are set to expire, that people are going to really feel it. Deductibles are going to double, she said, in the case of her adult children and many of her constituents. And so her putting her voice out there, it certainly gives Democrats something to point to and say, this is not a partisan issue. Just look at this prominent voice within your own party.
All right, Alice Barr, always a lot to talk about and always appreciate the time. Thanks a lot.
Yep.
We have a lot more coming up for you on The Take. We'll be right back. Behind every smile, there can be a silent battle. Millions of people, maybe our friends, coworkers, family, can be struggling with something we can't always see. On this World Mental Health Day today, the message is simple. You're not alone. The World Health Organization estimates 970 million people worldwide, or roughly 1 in 8 people, live with a mental health disorder, primarily anxiety and depression. Here in Georgia, nearly 40% of people in the state say they have anxiety or depression. And as for treatment, mental health accounts for only about 2% of median government health budgets globally, and fewer than half of countries have integrated mental health into primary care systems. So let's dive into breaking the stigma of mental health with Metro Atlanta mental health care professional Laura Morse. Thanks for the time.
Yes, thank you, Cheryl. I'm so glad to be with you today.
Yeah, such an important conversation. We talk so often about mental health in statistics, but what do those numbers look like in real life?
Like you said, they look like 1 in 7 to 8 adults and 1 to 6 to 7 children or youth are experiencing some kind of mental health concern. And so these are our neighbors, our family members, our friend, our community, our workplace. And so it's really important, I think, for all of us, whether we are in an active mental health issue or concern, to be empathetic and supportive of our community.
How has your own definition of mental health changed over time, personally and professionally? We have seen this conversation evolve.
Yes, thank you. That's such a great question. I was trained in the 90s, and there was more of a medically based model. So it was this idea of what is wrong with you. Something is problematic and there's some type of illness. And of course, there is mental illness, but there's also mental health and concerns that is not necessarily an illness. And prevention and discussion and support really can change a person's outlook and experience and quality of life.
You know, we talked about how common anxiety is, even if you just look at the state of Georgia. What are some of the most common struggles that you're seeing among clients right now?
I think that there's so much access to news and media, and of course, there's a lot of negativity and really difficult things going on in this world, but we are digesting it in such huge amounts every single day. And so, without just having your own concerns, maybe you have a family member that's having problems, or there's some kind of family or emotional couples conflict, then you're thinking globally of like what's happening in our city, what's happening in our state, our world. And so all of that can make us feel like we don't have control over anything. And that is where anxiety really does show up. Anxiety calls us to want to do something, but if you feel like you really don't have the tools to do something, then you're going to be increasingly more in distress.
You know, we always have a phone right next to us, and there's a reason the doom scrolling is a thing, so that constant being inundated with messaging is a challenge. What do you think is still holding people back, maybe from getting the support that they really need?
Yes, I think it's still conversation, and then maybe just a lack of understanding around what is mental health, what is mental illness, and really what can you do about it. And so I really do feel like it's becoming more and more talked about and less stigmatized, but the stigmas are still there. In certain communities, there may not be as much conversation or knowledge. And so it's really important to find the resources that would say, hey, this is something that a lot of people experience, and it's okay, it's a part of us, we can do something about it.
And even if someone does want to reach out, there is still the question of access to care. What is the greatest challenge, especially maybe in rural or lower income areas?
In rural and lower income areas, the barriers are actual providers, like who is available to be of service, and also access and money, really healthcare costs. And if you are on a really extreme budget, then you would see that mental health care would be a luxury instead of a necessity, right? And so that is where it is so important to pour more resources and find more ways of supporting, so that you can look at your health holistically and not just what is the physical need, but the mental need too, because it is all interconnected and related.
All right. We started with the message that no one is alone, and I guess we end with that message too, and our thanks for your time. Really appreciate that, Laura Morse.
Take care. Thank you.
All right. Much more coming up for you on The Take. You're watching it here on 11Alive Plus. Welcome back to the show. As open enrollment season's kicking off across the country, a big deadline is looming: the expiration of enhanced tax credits that help millions afford their health insurance. But with the federal government shutdown for the time being, there is growing concern that families could see those premiums shoot up pretty dramatically next year. We want to dive deeper into this part of the shutdown and the potential implications with Bobby Kogan, Senior Director of Federal Budget Policy for the Center for American Progress. Thanks for being on the show.
Hey, Cheryl, thanks so much for having me on.
All right, let's start with the basics. What exactly happens when these enhanced ACA tax credits expire, and how quickly might families feel the impact?
The answer is immediately. These credits help about 90% of people who are on the open market. And the average premium increase for people for these 90% of people, for these 20 plus million Americans, will be $500 to $600 per month. As soon as their as soon as they're beginning their new insurance in January, they will be feeling it right away. That's going to price many millions of people out of the market. So lots of healthy people will lose coverage, and that pushes up premiums for everyone, because when healthy people leave, then the risk pool is sicker and everyone is worse off because of it.
Sure, budgets are tight, and then you talk about $500 or $600 additional a month. That's really tough for so many families. This issue made headlines this week after Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, of course a conservative member of the GOP, sounded the alarm on the premium hikes, agreeing with the Democrats. Does that open the door to some kind of middle ground on this conversation?
I hope so. One of the fundamental things that the government does is helps people. That's the purpose of government, and helping people afford health insurance so that they can live healthy lives is one of the fundamental things. These premium tax credits are actually more likely to help red states than blue states. I think that there's recognition of that, and everyone understands that if your premiums go up $600 a month, it's going to make it pretty hard to afford. So it's the sort of thing that there ought to be common ground for, but we'll just have to see. So far, the president has been unwilling to negotiate, so hopefully that'll change now.
There's an impact, of course, on families, as you were talking about, but it ripples beyond that because people will still get sick and still go to hospitals. So if millions drop coverage, could that drive up costs across the entire healthcare system?
Yeah, that's right. That builds upon kind of the lost coverage in the so-called Big Beautiful Bill from a couple months ago. It's a big strain on rural hospitals and on urban and suburban hospitals. They still have to cover you. That's now uncompensated care. That goes to their bottom line and increases closures. We've actually already seen some hospitals closing and citing upcoming uncompensated care. And obviously, it doesn't matter if you can afford health insurance if there's no hospital to go to.
Before we go, how do you respond to critics who say continuing the subsidies adds too much to the federal deficit?
I would say that this is a pretty cheap thing, all things considered. It's pretty easy to pay for if Congress wants to pay for it. Right now, the issue is that there are just a lot of members of Congress who want to see it go away. This is the sort of thing that if Congress came together, they could come up with literally within an hour. It's cheap enough to make it happen.
If Congress does nothing before the tax credits expire, what does 2026 look like for the average American family?
It means a lot of people are going to lose their health insurance on top of the 10 million people who already are going to be kicked off from the Big Beautiful Bill from a couple months ago. It means a sicker America. It means a bunch of American families who are struggling to pay bills or deciding whether they want to actually go to the hospital or just kind of risk it. And so it means sicker people and more deaths.
All right, well, here we are standing by. We don't expect a vote at least until next Tuesday, so we'll see what happens next. Bobby Kogan, thanks so much for the insight.
Thanks so much for having me on, Cheryl.
All right, take care. You're watching The Take. We'll be right back after the break. She's young, she's attractive, and she has taken the nation by storm, and she does not exist. This is Tilly Norwood, a fully AI-generated performer. That's right, Tilly's not a real person. This has triggered strong backlash from actors, unions, and industry observers, citing concerns around ethics, job displacement, creative authenticity, and rights violation. Let's dive into the ethical debate with Barbara Duffick, an assistant professor of marketing at Georgia State University. Wow, this is going to be an interesting conversation. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you for having me.
All right, so in short, does that feel like deception or just the next step in digital storytelling?
Well, AI-generated actors and influencers and agents have actually been around since 2016. So they have been part of people's life, and people have been engaging with these digital entities for a couple of years now. So it was inevitable that at one point they are going to enter the mainstream media, and there's going to be entering the Hollywood, for instance. So I don't think it's a form of deception. It's definitely a new form of creative art, as they try to call it, according to the creators of Tilly Norwood.
Authenticity is such a big question here. Do you think this blurs the definition of authenticity in entertainment marketing or completely rewrites it?
I think it completely rewrites it. There are still some aspects of authenticity that are important for humans and would be important for virtual influencers too. So for example, our research finds that they may be having a higher perceived integrity. People may not see them as that much financially motivated when it comes to these endorsements. These virtual agents work with a couple of brands. One of the biggest virtual influencers, Lil Miquela, has actually worked with BMW, has worked with Dior, has endorsed several other brands. So they are essentially blurring the line of authenticity, but of course there are some aspects that they don't have. For example, they cannot feel, right? They cannot tell you if a perfume is good or bad. So there are some aspects of authenticity that they definitely lack, but there are some that they can make up for.
How do AI actors like Tilly affect the value and visibility of real human performers?
I think human performers are going to be even more important than before, and I think human creativity is going to be even more important and more valued by consumers than before. So I think that it was definitely a backlash that we saw in Hollywood when Tilly Norwood was announced, but I personally believe that us humans and the creative work we produce is going to be even more important in the age of AI.
Tilly doesn't have the wrinkles that I have, and she never will unless someone programs it. So there are all kinds of questions about what the standards are, perception, those kinds of things. Is there an ethical obligation for creators to make it unmistakably clear that an AI performer isn't real, or is some illusion part of the art?
Right. So I believe it needs to be disclosed that something is AI generated. Having said that, some of these virtual agents, virtual influencers actually try to show real world experiences. So Lil Michaela, I talked about her earlier. She's an AI influencer. She actually goes to Coachella and she ages. She celebrates birthdays. She has heartbreak. She has a partner. So they actually try to mimic real world life as such. So I believe AI and disclosure of it being AI generated is pivotal. But they try to mimic these real world behaviors as well.
So interesting. Someone goes through heartbreak but doesn't actually have a feeling. If consumers find out they've been sold to by a digital illusion, how might that damage brand trust in the long run if they didn't know that up front?
That can definitely have an impact on brand trust. And for that reason, I believe it's important to be very authentic and very transparent that this is an AI generated agent that is endorsing a company. Now, they can build brand awareness. They have a high following, these influencers. Lil Michaela, for instance, has 2.3 million followers on Instagram. And consumers actually engage with the content. So they like, they comment, they want to be involved with the content she produces.
Could this movement redefine kind of celebrity itself?
Well, we have seen these virtual agents be around for around 9 years, and they haven't actually redefined what it means to be an influencer. So I don't think it would, in the long term, redefine what it means to be a celebrity. But it may be a new form of connecting with audiences.
I guess in closing, what does this moment ultimately tell us about where marketing technology and our idea of real human connection is heading?
Right. So marketing technology is fast developing and generative AI is definitely shaping that. A lot of the content we see on social media is now becoming AI generated, but I believe real human connections and human brand connections are going to be even more important. So listening to your consumers, acting on their feedback, and nurturing that relationship is going to be important in the age of AI.
And just reminding people, Barbara and myself are both real. Barbara, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day. At just 32, she's become a formidable progressive voice in Georgia politics. Now, State Representative Ruwa Roman is eyeing to become the state's next governor. With us now, as he is each Friday, Zach Merchant, co-host of the Georgia Vote. Zach, simply put, this is a historic tossing of the hat into the ring. Explain more about what's behind the move.
Yeah, it is a historic jump into this race, but it is also, as Ruwa Roman would say, a policy-focused jump into this race. In interviews she's given through the kind of early days of her young candidacy here, she is focused on policy. She's advocating things like raising the state's minimum wage. You can tell it's a Friday because we've got some stuff going on off camera here in the newsroom as well, because there's always news happening in our newsroom, and it is a busy day and a busy week in Georgia politics too. Ruwa Roman is also occupying a younger lane in this race for governor. She's definitely a member of the more leftward flank of the Democratic Party, and represents, there's this tension we're seeing play out across the country in the Democratic Party of more older mainstream Democrats and a younger generation that is kind of advocating for some change in stances that the Democrats have taken for some time. So we're going to be watching to see how this all plays out.
And you're talking to her for Sunday's show, right?
We are. And, her getting into this race, it shakes up the dynamics of a Democratic primary field that has been evolving. It feels like every week I'm on this show, on The Take, on Fridays, there's some new Democratic candidate running for governor. There's 4 or 5, serious high name recognition Democrats already running. She joins this race as well. And what's notable here is that I think a political analyst of all different political persuasions would say this primary field has a little bit of everything, depending on your particular brand of kind of Democratic politics. There are more centrists, there are more progressive candidates, there are younger candidates, there are older candidates. We're going to see how this all plays out over the coming months. But Democratic primary voters, they're going to have a lot of choices when they go to the ballot box next year.
See, we get you on the show every chance we get because there's so much going on in local politics, but obviously also in federal politics right now. The government shutdown continues to drag on, and a Georgia conservative now showing some common ground with Democrats. This storyline with Marjorie Taylor Greene, whom you talked to recently, is kind of growing as we speak.
Yeah, she is getting a lot of attention, and I think it's certainly because it's no secret, she is a staunch conservative. but she is staking out some shared views with a major Democratic talking point right now. And whenever somebody sort of bucks expectations, they get a lot of attention for it. So that's what's happening here. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, in a conversation with us earlier this week, she expressed real concern about what she says would be skyrocketing health insurance premiums for many Americans if the Affordable Care Act subsidies are not extended by the end of the year. And that's notable because that point has been one of the key points made by many Democrats in this ongoing government shutdown debate. They say they want to see those premiums extended. Many Republicans have said they're not ready to do that yet. They want a different GOP stopgap bill, spending bill passed. And then they say maybe after the government is reopened, it will be time to talk about health care policy. Marjorie Taylor Greene is sort of sounding the alarm bell and sounding a little bit like she's in line with Democrats on this, although we asked her if she feels like she's on the same page as Democrats on this, and she wasn't willing to go that far.
Sure. Hey, Zach, we just have a couple of seconds left. Really quick, you got some new numbers in about fundraising totals for the Senate race here in Georgia?
Yeah, let's spin through them really quickly because we know that Georgia's upcoming Senate race expected to be one of, if not the most expensive in the country in 2026. 3 Republicans. There's Representative Buddy Carter. He brought in, according to his campaign, about $1 million this most recent quarter. Derek Dooley, about $1.8 million. Representative Mike Collins, $1.9 million. Those are the big names in the Republican primary. Whoever gets out of that with the nomination will go on to face Senator John Ossoff, the Democrat, in the general election. According to his campaign, he brought in $12 million in the last quarter.
Well, you get a sense of just how much money is going to start rolling in as we head into 2026. Zach, thanks so much. Always appreciate the time.
Thanks, Cheryl.
And don't forget to watch the Georgia Vote with Zach and Faith Jesse Sunday morning at 11 right here on 11Alive Plus. Don't go anywhere. We've got a lot more coming up for you on the other side of the break. Welcome back. Atlanta-based Delta Airlines just dropped its numbers for the third quarter of the year. CNN's Maribel Hebert joins us now from the NASDAQ market site in New York. Always great to see you. Break them down and tell us how they'll hit our wallet.
Hey, great to see you, Cheryl. So listen, Delta Airlines posted stronger than expected third quarter earnings Thursday and forecast an even better Q4. The Atlanta-based airline credited rising ticket prices and a steady demand for premium travel. Most major carriers have been cutting out less profitable flights to reduce the amount of empty seats. Delta projects its revenue to climb another 4% by year's end. The company's CEO says the government shutdown hasn't made a dent yet, but it could if it lingers on. The IRS is changing how you calculate your income tax, and it starts this year. The adjustments come for the new tax law signed in July and shifts in inflation. Standard deduction limits for both single and married filers were increased up to $1,500. Now, this could reduce the amount most people owe on their taxes and also increase refunds. But income brackets will also change in 2026, with some levels rising nearly 4%. Even so, the IRS points out that if your income moves you to a higher bracket, you only pay that rate on the overage amount. To see how this impacts you, you can visit irs.gov. And also, this is a good reminder to check your W-4 before the new year to avoid surprises come April. Content creators who were kicked off YouTube in recent years are being invited back. The social media giant is offering banned users a chance to create new accounts and repost some videos that previously received violations. YouTube is among many tech companies loosening its content rules amid backlash over moderation policies. Requests for new accounts will be accepted on a case-by-case basis. Those found to have committed, quote, severe and persistent violations may not be reinstated. Accepted users won't get to retrieve their old channels and followers. Important note there, they'll have to start from square one. And it wasn't clear how long the approval process might be, but YouTube says it will notify applicants by email. And finally, gold isn't the only precious metal on a skyrocketing trajectory. Listen, silver prices just hit a record high of $51 an ounce, breaking that $50 barrier for the first time since, get this, 1980. That represents a 75% surge this year. You can invest in silver by buying physical bars and coins or invest in exchange-traded funds backed by silver. And one of those iShares Silver Trust ETFs has seen activity jump around 68% this year. Platinum is outperforming both silver and gold, up 80%. Many people are turning to hard assets like precious metals to buffer against global economic uncertainty and tariff impacts. But Cheryl, before you dig around for silver, check your loose change. You know, some of those coins are worth way more than face value, and you can use apps now like a Coin Snap or Coin Inoscope to find in seconds how much that's worth. So just take a pic and give them a mint year. Cheryl.
That's a great suggestion. I'll go to the piggy bank since my earrings aren't real anyway, so that works out perfectly for me. Great to see you. Thanks so much. You're watching The Take here on 11Alive Plus. We'll be right back. Right now, let's take a live look over Georgia's Rome. Wow, that sky, it is clear as a bell. Blue skies, but check out the wind. A flag's really blowing in the wind there, but a crisp, clear, beautiful fall morning. Expect temperatures in the 70s today. But as you look at that picture, maybe picture lights, a red carpet, and a big cinema feel. Next month, the Rome International Film Festival will roll out the stars once again, bringing a slice of Hollywood to Northwest Georgia. Joining us now is the man behind the magic, Festival Director Seth Ingram, to talk about what will make this year's celebration such a standout. Great to see you.
Hey, Cheryl, thanks for having me on. So we're very excited about this year's festival.
Yeah, so for those who haven't been there yet, what's that energy like in Rome when that festival kicks into gear?
Well, this is our 22nd year of doing the festival. And a lot of people in Atlanta don't even know that we're happening, but it's a great opportunity. It's only an hour drive up from Atlanta. And once you get into downtown Rome, which is beautiful, all the venues are walkable. There's restaurants and shops everywhere. It's a great experience. And we kick off on November the 6th. We got a film called Signing Tony Raymond, produced by Georgia legend and NFL Hall of Famer Champ Bailey. And it's a film starring Oscar winner Mira Sorvino, and it was a film all financed in Georgia, shot in Georgia. So we're trying to really highlight a lot of our Georgia-made films this year. So we're really excited about that, and we're kicking off with an event with Georgia Entertainment before that. We've got a lot of great partners and community partners, and then we have special guests coming. In the past, we've had people like Burt Reynolds, Billy Bob Thornton, Ethan Hawke, Maya Hawke, Francis Ford Coppola. So we're super excited to roll out, and you'll have to come see who some of the guests are, but I can tell you this, Tim Blake Nelson will be back with us presenting the Flannery O'Connor Award for Storytelling to Miss Jerusha Hess, who you may know from films such as Napoleon Dynamite, Nacho Libre, and Austin Land. And she's going to be with us as well, so we'll be giving out that award with the Flannery O'Connor Foundation at this year's festival.
Oh, that's terrific. I love the intersection of sports and filmmaking with Champ Bailey. I got to cover him at a couple of Super Bowls with the Denver Broncos. You've called this one of the most filmmaker-friendly festivals in the country. Why is that?
Well, I think that we try to make all of our filmmakers, no matter if they're made a short film or if they're an international filmmaker, if they're a local filmmaker, wherever they come, we try to show them the same hospitality. It's an opportunity for all these filmmakers to get together and network. We're not, a big Tribeca type film festival where everyone can kind of have access to each other. And we create just a really warm environment for filmmakers to come and meet each other. And out of our festival over the past few years, I've seen 7 or 8 feature films get put together that I know were birthed at our festival, and that gives me great pride in knowing that we're able to do that and provide that opportunity for producers and filmmakers.
It's such a cool dichotomy because Rome is this wonderful smaller city, but the festival pulls in big names. How do you keep that balance between what is such a hometown charm and then also that Hollywood sparkle?
Well, you just bring in, we make it match around the art. So we never bring a celebrity in that doesn't have something associated with the festival or in some reason. So they're here as a filmmaker to showcase their work too. And I think right now more than ever is a time where film festivals are really needed because it's so hard for even films that you would think could cut through and get distribution out there, but they need a marketing campaign and a runway to start promoting their film and regional audiences, and we provide that regional audience for them to come. So they want to be here. Once they come here, they're happy to influence. We try to, and others to come. So, we built our reputation on just being good citizens to the film industry.
You talk about that connection. You often say the festival's about connecting stories to community. How do you see that play out when audiences and filmmakers get that rare opportunity to meet face to face?
Oh, it's great. And like friendships emerge, and then sometimes there's unexpected friendships that I find in our small town. Like we'll have a celebrity and someone says, oh, I went to college with that guy or something like that. So It's surprising, but just to see we bring in a lot of international filmmakers too that people are not familiar with, and we have sometimes we do a guest housing program and try to do a sponsor for them while they're here to kind of show them around, and those are great. We have several international partnerships, and just having the dichotomy of Georgia and the world here together, and highlighting all of our Georgia films. We really want to do that, and it's a great experience, a great opportunity for everyone.
Let's talk a little bit more about those films. You've got everything from action to indie art films. What's the one movie you think that audiences are going to really be talking about all weekend?
Well, in addition to signing Tawny Raymond, I think people are going to love that. But we have a film from Josh Waller, who's made it. It's a Portuguese film. He's an American filmmaker, and it's called Lone Samurai. And I'm super excited about that. There's not a lot of samurai movies made these days, so that'll be playing Saturday night of the festival, November the 8th, at the DeSoto Theater. We also have the Flannery O'Connor Award and some of our legacy screenings. We're going to screen Napoleon Dynamite with Jerusha Hess here, and that's going to be amazing. And then present her with the award and do a Q&A. But in addition to that, there's no shortage of Georgia films. I think we have 7 Georgia features that were all produced in Georgia. So that's, there's a lot of connection here. And some of these the budgets range from next to nothing to millions of dollars. So it's kind of all over the place. But we like I said, we treat all the artists with the respect that they deserve.
Yeah, no doubt. Before we go, any surprise guests, red carpet moments we should be keeping an eye out for?
Well, our jury is being named. We're going to be having some media releases coming out here soon, so there will be some special guests on our jury, so keep your eye out for that. But some of our local regulars, I know I can announce French Stewart's going to be on our jury again this year, okay. Actor French Stewart and actor Ethan Embry, who is now a Georgia native. So we're excited to have those 2 guys here. But yeah, just keep your eye out. There's going to be lots of educational panels and stuff too. There's something for everybody here. So just get up to Rome. It's only an hour and 15 minutes out of Atlanta. It takes that long to drive across to the airport if you live on one side of Atlanta. So it
takes that long for me to get gas sometimes. Yeah. Seth, thanks a lot. Have a great festival. Appreciate it. So if you're thinking about making the trip, the festival runs the 6th through the 9th right in the heart of downtown Rome. Single day and all weekend passes are still available. You can find the full schedule and film listings at the festival's website. Plenty more ahead. We'll be right back. You're watching The Take. Before we go, my final take. There's a new face of domestic life, a stay-at-home son, a new trend popping up across social media. Young men proudly calling themselves trad sons or stay-at-home sons. They're trading in the hustle of a job to manage the household in exchange for free room and board. These guys are cooking, cleaning, running errands while living with their parents. Recent census data shows nearly 1 in 3 adults under 35 now live with their parents, and men are more likely to do it than women. Experts say it's not just about comfort or laziness, it's about economics a lot of the time. With high costs of housing and inflation and job insecurity rising, moving home feels safer than struggling alone. Family therapists say the key is balance. Helping at home can teach valuable life skills and keep family bonds strong, but the goal should not be to stay there forever. As a mom of 3 boys who already have chores, all help is appreciated, but that's true long before they grow to be in their 20s and want to stay at home for free. For our sons and daughter, they know being part of a family is a team sport and everybody pitches in. So this is going to be a fun conversation at home tonight. Let us know what you think, and we hope you have a great weekend. Thanks for watching The Take.